Now this is gaming, because it's on a GameCube. Well, would you look at this? I gotta film a new video. I guess we'll put the GameCube away for now. We have a lot of cool stuff that we have to take a look at, but I actually have to film it. And just like that, we're now ready to use our Macintosh for the professional market from 2006. Recently, the channel has gotten more subscribers than it ever has before in its entire timeline of existing, and let me just say that thank you very much for everyone who has decided to click on subscribe, and I can't wait to get even more videos out to you guys. But I figured an awesome topic to introduce a lot of you to the channel would be a retro setup, just like the one we're using right now. Now, I thought about doing multiple setups in the same video, such as this one over here, but I figured it would be better to actually introduce, one setup at a time and talk a bit more about it in detail. But don't worry, we're also going to talk about some hi-fi equipment. But for the most part, today we're going to be focusing on the Mac Pro itself and how I actually get some use out of it. So first off, let's actually talk about the accessories. So even though we are using a Mac, I have Dell accessories here, such as this Dell display, and this Dell keyboard. Now I do also have Dell mice, but for now I'm just using this wireless Logitech one because it's just kind of like a go-to mouse for really any system. It just works. Right now I'm just using it here. But this keyboard was not actually the original keyboard that I started using the setup with. It was actually this one. The only reason I changed over to this is because I just wanted to use this keyboard for a bit, but this one is excellent because I did actually restore this, and it also has multimedia controls, which is excellent when it comes to iTunes, which we also have in the background here. Now, I do know that cable mess is, well, a mess, but this setup was never intended to stay like this long term. This was kind of more like an initial starting point, but instead of like improving on it, I just added some more cables because that's how I ended up using the setup. Now this is going to improve in the future. Same goes for all the iOS devices in the back here, and Apple TV just casually sitting there. I do need to figure out a better storage solution for this. Definitely not like the final version of this setup. I have so many plans and other things I'd like to add to this setup. As you can see, we have a lot of space here, and right now it's pretty much taken up by nothing. This hard drive was actually useful at one point in terms of actually using it all the time. This used to have my iTunes library, but ever since I got the Mac Pro here, it's all on the Mac itself, and I did a whole video where I installed a new hard drive, or a new to the Mac hard drive for iTunes. So right now this is kind of just more like a macOS installer. That's how I've been using it recently, but this is definitely gonna go into a different spot. And as for, well, the cable mess, there are two power strips here. They work really well. They are both also, older. That one's beige and that one's like an early 2000s one. But they do get the job done. They've been working without any problems. Like I said, this is still kind of like a work in progress, but I also power off the whole setup when it's not in use. So I physically turn off the switches. Otherwise, there's just, right now an iPad 1 and the MacBook, which used to be my main iTunes system before I got the Mac Pro here. And we also have this awesome HP CRT display. This is a flat panel, model number P1130. And I was actually using this for a bit, but I moved over to the second display just for convenience. The reason why this is here is because this is a large, heavy monitor, and, well, it definitely can't go on a desk like that. So this is kind of like a storage spot, but it is operational in terms of all I have to do is move that VGA cable over to the Mac Pro, and I can get it up and running. Now, as for the specifics of the monitors themselves, obviously it's a Dell display, but this is model number 1908 WFP, and as you can see from all of these product features here, we have a 1440 by 900 resolution. It's a 19-inch panel, and we have a lot of extras such as multiple inputs for VGA, DVI, the USB hub. There is a model that looks pretty much identical to this display, which also has composite video input, but this one unfortunately doesn't have it. And as for the 4x3 display here, it is an E178FP. Now, there really isn't anything fancy going on with this panel because it only has VGA. It's excellent as a second display because not only does it match the Dell theme, it has a great picture. It just doesn't have the extras that this one has. But then again, if you're using it, as a secondary monitor, you don't necessarily need all of the extras. The Mac Pro is hands down an awesome, fun system to use. Now, even though I do have systems with more capable hardware, it's just a cool Macintosh. Now, this initially came with 2.66 gigahertz processors, but as you can see, this has been upgraded to 3 gigahertz processors, and the RAM itself is a whole other thing. 32 gigabytes of RAM in a system like this is insane. If you had even 8 gigabytes back then, that was a lot of RAM, so to see the actual physical limit inside the system is very cool. And as for the hard drives, we do still have the factory hard drive here, the 250 gigabyte one, but we also have our upgraded iTunes media drive, which is 1 terabyte. I took this out of a Dell. It was on Windows 10, and as you can imagine, a hard drive on Windows 10 isn't exactly ideal. So I repurposed it inside the Mac Pro here, and it's been excellent. It works really well for iTunes. I do have some movies on here, and I've also been storing app IPA files. So for old iOS devices connected up to the Mac Pro itself, transfer over the app, and it works just fine. Now, I would like to increase the actual amount of apps I have. It just takes a lot of time to actually organize, sort out everything, and have it actually working in the first place. But one of the main use cases, as the iTunes media drive implies, is that I use this for all of my iTunes content, which we have playing right now. iTunes is an awesome utility to have, especially with the older iOS devices, because it really just is a plug-and-play solution. Now, I don't use iTunes for the apps specifically, even though this version does support it. I could use it if I wanted to, but for the way I'm using all of the IPA files and sorting those out, I just use other applications such as iExplorer and iFunbox. I do also have older versions of Discade, which this is what eventually turned into iMazing. So yeah, we have some real old software on here, but it works really well. And it's just awesome to see this 2011 operating system still usable even today. And of course, I don't even have to mention the modern Firefox, which we saw earlier here. We have a dedicated video on the channel all about modern Firefox, so if you want to see your old Mac back on the modern web, you can check out that video. It's a very fun system to use. There's a lot of potential here with the software, and I feel like I'm still only beginning to make the most use out of it. I barely use any of the RAM, which is hilarious. I mean, look at that. 30,000 megabytes free. Insane. Old macOS was really optimized, and it honestly is crazy to think that this is running on a hard drive in the first place. It's that fast. In terms of the actual dock here and the software, we obviously have the Mac Essentials, Modern Firefox, as you saw earlier, the iOS applications. We have Drive Genius, which is for the hard drives, and we also have some movie applications here. And I did also install the iWork suite, so we have Keynote, Pages, Text, well, actually Text Edit is just the default, but we also have Numbers, and then Line-In is just a utility that helps me actually make use of the Yeti caster over here when I'm doing a screen recording. Now, I don't need to have those open right now, but I just have them in the dock. And yeah, even though we have all of this awesome stuff on the Mac, there is still so much more I can make use on the system here because these specifications are just insane. This Sharp Hi-Fi system is pretty cool. So whenever you turn up the volume, you also get some awesome LEDs because why not? Now when I initially got this Sharp Hi-Fi, I actually didn't use it for a long time because I didn't know where to use it. However, whenever I started using iTunes more and, well, you know, the setup as it is now, this has always been a core component because even back with the MacBook, as you can imagine, MacBook speakers aren't exactly ideal. So this has been excellent to use as a powered set of speakers. Now this of course does have other features such as a 5-disc CD changer, and instead of having like one dedicated drive or like a, you know, one of those typical 5 CD changers where it's like a carousel type of mechanism, this actually has 5 separate trays for each of the discs. Now this part of the hi-fi system does actually work, and alongside that you also have a radio, which is pretty common for any hi-fi system, and we do also have a dual cassette deck here, but unfortunately this part of the hi-fi doesn't really work. The second deck here doesn't even have a pinch roller. I don't know where that went. It's probably potentially still inside, otherwise it's, you know, just gone. And as for the other one, even though it does seem to actually be okay, this has some electronic problems and it just doesn't work right. Now I can technically get a cassette to play, but it just doesn't play properly, so I never really use this in the first place. But the biggest feature that I use all the time is the input here. Now this technically is for a, as you can see, composite video input, so basically kind of like a pass-through. There's a composite output jack on the back, but I don't use that because I don't really have anything video related hooked up here. Now that could change in the future, but as it is right now, it's just for audio, and I figured why not have this as well because I have a lot of composite cables. But this is connected up to the Mac Pro, and we also have the mini disc deck here connected up to this as well. But how do we actually simultaneously, you know, have them both connected if there's only one input? We actually have a switch box here. Now this is obviously for the PlayStation 2 era of consoles, considering we have that classic design, but for right now I just use it as a audio switcher. Now I could change this out for something else in the future and maybe repurpose this with video gear, but for now it does get the job done. The first input is the Mac, the second one is the mini disc itself, but most of the time it just stays for the Mac. And yes, it is a little bit dusty. The setup itself does need some work and improvements, but it is still operational as it is. And overall, I've been really happy with the performance of this Sharp Hi-Fi system. Going beyond the Hi-Fi setup here, we have a lot more empty space. Yeah, can you notice a trend here? There's a lot of empty space here that is just waiting to be upgraded. I do have a cassette deck in mind for here, but I just haven't actually, you know, set it up yet. But we do have the mini disc deck here, which is actually working, and even though we have iTunes playing right now, we can power this up, and we have a stack of mini discs here. If we want to listen to mini disc, we can certainly do that by just switching the input. When I first got the mini disc deck, I was recording a whole bunch of audio onto the discs that came with it, and it was honestly kind of like a stress test to make sure that everything was working just fine. I was getting a lot of use out of it, and it is really fun to use. Now that I actually have used it a bit more, I would like to potentially re-record, maybe, you know, remaster some of the initial discs that I've made, because I didn't take advantage of the digital input that this actually has. Even though this doesn't have digital output, around the back here you can see we actually have Toslink connected up to it, and we have that because the Mac Pro itself has Toslink, so we can do a direct digital recording. Now this is just a test recording of a song I made a while back with Toslink, and it is working just fine. Overall, mini disc is an awesome format. I just want to get more use out of it, and we do definitely have the proper equipment to make the most of it now. It just takes a bit of time to really set up the recordings because this isn't a NetMD machine. This isn't a newer one. This is from 1999. So it's an earlier model, and as you can imagine, you have to do the recordings in real time, but it can be pretty fun to do. Probably the hardest part about it is actually selecting which tracks to go with other tracks, and you also have to keep in mind that we do have a time limit here. So if we actually stop this and then go into record mode, we have 73 minutes remaining. Just like a normal cassette, it does take a little bit of time to really set it up how you want, but this is all digital. You can easily re-record it. Minidisc is just super cool. Yeah, this is not super ideal because there's so much more space here. So in the future, more hi-fi components will be added to the setup here. I do also have a similar era DVD player from Sony, which has a similar design language as to the Minidisc here, but I'm thinking that I will actually repurpose that in another setup because I just don't know how much use I would get out of it, considering we have, you know, a perfectly working optical drive inside the Mac Pro, and I don't necessarily use video all that much at this setup, you know, in terms of like composite gear. And when it comes to video, that's a whole other topic because of course I have other setups for video as well. And of course, as you saw earlier, this is the other half of the speaker setup here. So if we take a look at it from the side here, you can see that it is spread out here. It could be cool to have the stereo system somewhere more centrally located and have the speakers set up, you know, with a wider stereo separation. But I do also have other audio setups, so it's not really that big of a concern, and whenever I'm actually using the setup here, it's nice to have it right here. And of course we also have the remote for the Sharp system here. I don't use this all the time, but it is still convenient to have, so we have that set up. And we also have a remote for the mini disc deck. Now this is not the factory remote for it. This is actually for a hi-fi component system. As you can see, there's options for CD, cassette deck, but as you can see, there's also mini disc. As we saw earlier, this entire section is basically not being used as it should be, but I do have many ideas for network accessories. I have a lot of Ethernet cables and, you know, Ethernet equipment that can definitely be used in this area here, especially when it comes to desktop systems. This can accept 2 Ethernet jacks, so, you know, double the Ethernet because why not? And even though I don't necessarily have hardwired Ethernet here, I do have a lot of air ports, and these have been super helpful. This is currently what the G5 and the Mac Pro are connected up to. That's how I have Ethernet here. I could also use wireless networking if I actually had the Wi-Fi cards, and as you can see, we have a whole bunch of different air ports of all different types just working together on the setup, connecting us to the internet. So at this point you're probably thinking, wow, you only use Apple stuff. What are you, an Apple fanboy or something? I wonder what that could be. So anyways, yeah, now it's time to actually open up the Mac Pro, see what we have inside. So we have the 2 hard drives here. These 2 hard drive bays are empty, so there's still room for improvement. We have the factory graphics card here, the X1900 XT, and that is actually what the original sticker says. So this was shipped with this model of card, which is really cool. This was one of the higher end cards that you could get with the Mac Pro for the time. And of course we have our 32 gigabytes of RAM right here. Now these cards are really cool, but the funny part is that I can't really make use of this because of lack of drivers. Now if I update this to a 2.1 boot ROM and update it to Mountain Lion or something newer at least, Mavericks maybe, then I could actually make use of these. We have a USB 3 card, and I believe it's also a Thunderbolt card right underneath it, but the thing is, it really doesn't affect me because I really don't have that many USB 3 devices to begin with. So I do have these in the Mac, but it really just is for, like, you know, storage at this point. I have so many other systems and components, and like I said, lack of USB 3 devices, that it really doesn't affect me. That is where the Wi-Fi card would go if I had one, but unfortunately there is nothing in here. And you can see the 2 hard drives, but I will not take those out because obviously the Mac is running. And here we have our awesome RAM, which is, well, doing random access memory things. As for the optical drive situation, we do have one in the top bay, but we don't have anything in the bottom. Now this is definitely another room for improvement situation, but it's not super essential right now. However, it is an upgrade path that would be cool to actually explore in the future. And then of course we have our wonderful power supply here, which is working to power the entire system. And here's a closer look at the back. So obviously power, we have our video, and then I do have the Toslink connected up to the mini disc deck, but otherwise we have audio output and Ethernet. Yeah, I know I can definitely make more use of the system here, especially with all the extra components, but I need to get more accessories in the first place. One very important accessory that is connected up to the Mac Pro is the Yeti caster, and honestly that's probably an understatement, because if I did not decide to move this over to this setup here, a lot of you, if not most of you, would not even be watching this video in the first place. Now there's a couple reasons why I moved the Yeti caster over here. When I first got this, it was always connected up to the Mac mini desk setup, and I thought I would be using it more for, you know, commentary, voiceover, stuff like that. But it turns out I really only did that like a handful of times, and most of the time I would either just use the built-in microphone on the camera that I'm using, like in today's video with the iPhone 4, or if I was using it, I would just connect it up to my iPhone and use it as an external microphone, which I can also do sometimes, but for now I'm just using the iPhone here. But I also wanted to remove it from the desk setup because there's obviously a lot more space here. I wanted to make the Mac mini desk setup a lot less cluttered, and at the same time, when it comes to the reaction content, it's obviously fun to use an older camera for, you know, a specific style of video, but I still wanted to provide decent high quality commentary, which obviously this can do because this is a professional microphone. It's, you know, it's not just your built-in microphone from the iPhone or whatever. So it did its job very well, and I will continue to use it at the setup because honestly, the rest is history. If you've discovered the channel from the reaction content, it was all made possible from the one choice to move this over here to actually get some more use out of it. And with that, we pretty much covered the basics of the setup here. I know we could do an even deeper dive on everything, but honestly, there isn't all that much going on here yet. Like I said, we still need more upgrades and awesome stuff, but don't worry, I'll bring you guys along for the journey because, I mean, just look at it. It's so cool. I can't wait to use it even more. And if you want even more content on the Mac Pro itself, I have made dedicated videos in the past doing a deep dive on it, actually showing what's inside, doing some research on the components, and also cleaning it up, installing macOS, and getting it up and running. Again, big shout out to the Yeti caster because this has definitely changed everything. And if you guys want to see something else, then leave a comment down below. I really do enjoy reading your comments, even though it may take me a while to get to them because I've never had so many comments in the channel's history. I really do enjoy seeing what you guys have to say, and if you enjoyed today's video, then consider leaving a thumbs up, and if you want to stay notified for other awesome projects like today's video, then consider subscribing. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.